My guest this morning is Chris Parsons. Chris Parsons grew up in the small fishing village of Flat Rock, now it's Newfoundland, correct?
Yeah, Newfoundland.
Newfoundland, okay, because
understand Newfoundland.
Newfoundland, there you go, because it looks like Newfoundland, and a few years ago I was on an international trip, and it was a bunch of folks on the trip from Newfoundland, and they kept correcting us on how to say it. So that's why when I saw it, I'm like, okay, Newfoundland.
And so will I, Mark.
There you go. Newfoundland, where he was surrounded by storytellers. When he became a father, he began creating his own children's stories, and soon he was sharing them with a wider audience. Over time, his audience grew up, but he continued to create his stories and colorful characters mostly for his own enjoyment. One day, he had a flash of inspiration about a little mouse named Spark and began to create the world of A Little Spark. Today, Chris lives in Dallas. He has left the high-tech world of innovation and business development behind and has focused on his real passion to create new, meaningful experiences for children centered around powerful and engaging stories like A Little Spark. Together with his wife, Kathleen, daughter, Maggie, and son, is it Keelan? Keelan, there you go. Because I have a thing about names. I want to make sure I pronounce them correctly. Keelan, they share a love for all their God's creations. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Reading Circle microphones. None other than Chris Parsons. Chris, again, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Great to be here, Mark.
It is great to have you. And then you just heard me give that weather report for the New Jersey area where I am. We're talking like 9 degrees, and you're down in Dallas, so I know you're getting some heat down there.
Well, actually, it's 34 degrees. So it went from 60 yesterday to right now it's down to 34.
Okay, so 34 for Dallas is cool. That's cold for Dallas.
Cold. Yeah,
34 is cold for Dallas, that's for sure. I have a cousin who lives down there. She's lived in different parts of the United States, and her current location is Dallas. I mean, she was from Virginia, but she's lived down in Georgia and Atlanta, and now she's over in the Dallas area. She's a teacher as well. So, I kind of keep up with what's going on with Dallas. And so when I saw that you're from Dallas, okay, it reminded me where my cousin is. But I tell you what, again, for the listening audience, you always hear me talk about folks calling in from different time zones. And most of the guests is in a time zone that's behind us. Every now and again, I'll get somebody overseas that's ahead of us, but most of our guests is behind us. So when it is 7:08 right now for us, it is 6:08 for Chris. And I'm always extremely appreciative because the show is early as it is. But for folks that are in the time zone that's behind us, it's even earlier. So I'm extremely appreciative of folks taking the time to get up early to talk with us and share with us their work. So now there's a couple of things going on, Chris, I want to get started with. Like I said, I really don't work off of a question list. I really kind of go off of the bio as well as our conversation. And I see here you started off, it says you've left the high-tech world of innovation. Let's start there, and then we're going to work our way into the writing of books and then really kind of get into a couple of things. And we're going to work our way into conversation. A high percentage of my guests are females. And I do have male authors that come on as well, but the bulk of them are females. But then another kicker with you, if you will, or a differentiator is the fact that not only are you male, but you're male in writing children's books. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So let's start with when you say you left the world of innovation. What are we talking about here?
So, as mentioned, I grew up in Newfoundland. I went to college there. And early on, I ended up working for IBM in Newfoundland and then moved to different parts all over the world, actually, and really was focused on technology. So I worked with IBM. I worked with a number of large technology companies around business development, M&A. We lived, obviously, in Canada. We lived in Atlanta. We lived in Dallas. We lived in London. We lived in Asia. So my role was really around business development strategy. Most recently, the reason I moved to Dallas was with a job with AT&T. So technical background, mostly around strategy, and that's been my life for like 30 years. And I made a little switch 3 years ago, as they say, and now for something totally different. But, it was that technology background, and I sort of incorporated some of that when we talk about the book and how it uses some basic technology to make it interactive. But, yeah, techie.
Well, I tell you what.
Mark, I started when the Internet was being developed, so I've been around a long time.
Well, I tell you,
invented that.
The reason I asked that question because it is truly a small world, and nobody can convince me that there's not a higher force or an energy. In my case, and I see you reference, God's children in the book, but in my case, it's God. But there's no one is going to make me believe that there's not something that connects us that's higher than just us. And where I'm going with this is the fact I asked you that question for a reason, because I left corporate now 20 some years ago, back in 2000, 22 years ago now. I left corporate, and the corporate that I left was AT&T. That's when AT&T was headquartered here in New Jersey. Their headquarters were here in Basking Ridge, New Jersey, and I worked for AT&T for 15 years. I was in their marketing department, and my true passion had always been education. So in 2000, I left corporate and actually transitioned to education. And right now I'm a school principal. So it was interesting as I saw that. That's why I said, I know what my first question for him is going to be. And then so when you said IBM, like, okay. And then now you said you're in Dallas because of AT&T. Yeah. Like, wow. Because they are headquartered down there now.
Yeah.
So, all right. So now, now you're in the technology and the innovation, and I see here, in the bio that we read that you always kind of wrote stories, or you come from an area that, was surrounded by storytellers. Now, it's one thing, and having made that transition from corporate to education, I get it. But now you're making the transition from innovation, corporate, to now writing books. Like, what was that in terms of, like, how did you go from, I'm not saying you can't do both, but what I'm saying is, how did you integrate now writing books with what you were doing in corporate?
Yeah. So I made the transition about 3 years ago. So again, my background, as you read, Newfoundland, storytelling, a lot of music where I grew up. And so I got the bug early on, and then, I created these stories. And I kept developing stories, even as my kids and my audience grew. But, my core focus was on the technology and leveraging technology. Then 3 years ago, because I really wanted to focus on my passion, which was creating these stories, these experiences. And I was able to take some of the technology background and incorporate it in the book. Because in the book, we use things like QR codes for music. So when you as you read the book, you come to a point in the book, you see a QR code, and that song plays for that moment in the book. And it's really an extension of the book at that time. So I was able to use some basic technology, from my background. I didn't want it to be all about technology, but what we've done is leveraging technology to enhance the story, so to speak, without getting, too technical, because obviously kids love technology. But so I was able to incorporate some of that in how we created, a little spark and some of the things that we're doing around that today. But 3 years ago, and at Mark, I remember I went in because the people in my technology world didn't know anything about my other world, where creating all these stories and characters. I'm off in fantasy land in that part of my mind, and then obviously, and I remember in Dallas walking into my boss and said, I'm leaving. I said, oh no, and they figured I'd be going to a high tech, because I worked with a number of startups over the years, and they figured that I was moving on again. And then I explained to them, no, it's children's books, A Little Spark. And they were, what? And so I made that and as it turns out, some of those people that I worked with at AT&T are now real big supporters and are involved in, what we're doing around Be That Spark and the book, A Little Spark. So they're still with me, those folks. Because the friendships, as you know, the friendships you make in a work environment like that last forever. So they're still around, all the technical people, but they're cheering me on from the sideline now.
You're right. I mean, I still have some of my friends from, and again, I worked for AT&T from 1985 to 2000. Matter of fact, let's see, the chairman at that time was Robert Allen. He was the chairman of AT&T at the time when I was there, Bob Allen.
Yeah.
And so you're absolutely right. Now, he's right in what Chris just said, because it is a very, and I can tell you now what I hadn't done it yet because I was going to wait until after we did the interview. And not to mention, we're on virtual at the moment. We go back and supposed to be going back live again on Monday, the 24th, but we shall see. But I can tell you now, because I'm going to go to my 3rd and 4th grade class and 5th grade class, and I'm going to take the book into the classroom. I'm going to read to them. The principal's going to read to them. And I can tell you, whenever, if I have one of them with their cell phones or whatever come up and we do the QR code, that's going to blow them away. In terms of being able to, whatever device we have, whether it's my phone, their phone, or whatever, because, we're always on about their cell phones, but now we can actually use it for an educational purpose. So whenever I go up there and say, all right, if you have your cell phone, would you come up? And they put it up against that QR code and the sound comes up, that's going to blow their mind. But it is an interesting and great use of merging what you do, what you know in terms of the technological piece and the author piece, because that's a differentiator in terms of book. Matter of fact, I'm beginning to think you're the first book so far that I came across that integrated that, wherein, you can put your device up against the QR code and you get, the excerpt from the book or the song or what have you. What made you think of that?
Well, I struggle because, when I created A Little Spark, the story, I wanted it to be an experience. So I really, because my background, Newfoundland and Irish and the music is everywhere. And so I was looking for a way, and QR codes have been around forever. It's only, COVID. We've got everybody familiar with QR codes because you see them on the menus and they're very simple. So I started, working with the QR codes and testing it with different folks in my audience. And it seemed to be something really a no-brainer, right? Very simple. Open your phone, put it on there. And because I wanted to bring, and you know more about this than I, when you think about a story, if you can create an experience with music and characters, and we have an audio book, it brings the kid, parent, or teacher into the story. So you're now living the story. You can listen to the characters in the audio book. So it creates this experience, and it's based obviously on the book and the story in the book, but the music really, for me, and the feedback I get, really enhances the feeling when a parent is with the kid as they go through. It's because it's really focused on a read aloud type environment with kids, younger kids. Older kids obviously can read it directly. So it's a very simple way to bring it together. And as I said, now everybody is familiar with the QR code, and we see them, they're popping up everywhere now. Every ad on TV is a QR code. So the timing was pretty good to create something simple that people could use and not worry about the complicated technology and whatnot. And I'm learning as we go along how to make it even easier for folks, but still trying to incorporate those aspects of interactivity in the experience.
Let me tell you why, from an educational standpoint, this is so powerful. For one, and many of our children, not all, because I don't want to generalize, but for a lot of children, they really do have no interest in reading whatsoever. Now, me, I've been reading since I was a child. I've always loved reading, hence the show, The Reading Circle. But whenever you can create, like you said, and I like the way you use the word experience, when you create an experience, the likelihood of a child engaging is that much higher. We're dealing with children now by at the age of 6 to 8 months old, they know how to swipe an iPad or a tablet or a telephone. It is amazing to watch a child that young instinctively know to take the tablet or phone or whatever, and they take their finger and they swipe. They know how to do it already. 6, 8 year old, 6, 8 months old to a year old. Because I have a nephew. He's about 16, 18 months old now. He came out the womb seemed like knowing how to swipe these tablets. All right. So the fact that you're creating an experience that's not only visual, but now it's auditory as well. And the visuals of it, I mean, hands off to your illustrators and everyone, because it really is very colorful. And the book we're talking about, listening audience, the title of the book is A Little Spark. It's a children's book. But as Chris was just saying, it's not just a book, it's an experience. So if I put my phone up to the QR code right now, whatever's on there, it'll play.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see. You just
told
me.
Up and you just hit the button and
right.
It goes.
Okay. So now you said you couldn't hear the music, so you're not going to be able to hear it. But I'm going to put it on in a second. I'm going to actually put it on the air. Let me see if I can get this. You make sure I'm doing the QR right. You got to pull your camera up, correct?
Yeah. Just open your camera.
Open the camera.
Cover it over. Yeah. And then. It pops up.
Okay, it goes right. It's going into my Safari, and then let's see. Here we go. BeTheSpark.com is coming up, and let's see. I don't want any of that. I'm waiting for it to load. And what do you say? Just hit the button. Okay, excerpt chapter 1.
Play.
Okay, there we go. All right, there it is. So I'll tell you what. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it or not, but I'm gonna put it on. I'm gonna let it play right now. As soon as it comes out, I want to let the listening audience have an opportunity, because this is going to be an experience for me and them as well.
Yeah.
Chapter 1.
There it is.
I can do more. Hurry up, Spark, his father called from the doorway. If you're late again, Veen is going to go crazy, and who knows what his cats will do to you. Rats! Spark jumped out of the bed and dashed across the floor and down the stairs, grabbing a broom, forgetting his lunchbox as he raced out the door. His mother ran after him. "Spark, you forgot your lunch!" He ran back to her, gave her a kiss on the cheek, grabbed the lunchbox, and darted down the narrow streets, dodging the little animals playing their games. As he passed by Old Mouse Mildred's house, she chuckled and called out, "Late again, Spark?" He shouted back at her, grinning. I know. I think there's something wrong with my bed. It grabs me by the foot and won't let me up in the morning." Mildred shook her head and laughed at him as he darted around the corner. He didn't stop running until he finally saw his best friend Gordon, standing at the edge of a group of mice assembled in the town square, and scampered next to him, out of breath. "You're late," Gordon whispered, looking nervously at a group of cats up on a podium across the street, surrounding their leader Veen, the head weasel. "You're lucky Veen didn't notice you." "Did I miss anything, Gordon?" Gordon shook his head. "No, he's about to do his morning rant." Veen was in a...
All right, so I played an excerpt. Right now, I'm telling you, my students are going to love that. That is going to blow them away, that they'll be able to put their cell phone up on that code and be able to hear and listen to the book the same way we were just now. Listening audience, I literally did what Chris was talking about. I put the phone, and that's one thing about technology. Since I'm a techie as well, I kind of know how to hook everything up. I was able to put the phone on there, on the QR, and play the excerpt for you. So in terms of, you were saying a couple of minutes ago, Chris, that the folks at whether it was IBM or AT&T, they knew nothing about this other world in terms of your imagination. Where the storyline coming from? Where the story's coming from?
Well, I've been obviously creating these stories a long time. With my kids, I started with we read all the classics and did all that, but I started testing out my stories on my kids, and they like the stories, and nieces and nephews. So it started, around those stories. And, I do different voices, make it interactive back then. The music was part of it. And then one day I was on a plane, it was about 5 years ago, and this idea of this little mouse, Spark, the lowest of the low, unlikely hero, steps up and basically saves the day. That's the high-level plot. And so I started developing that. So every time I was on a plane, instead of doing emails and PowerPoint, I'd be in my seat working on my stories, and I got it to a point where I wanted to create an experience, and I wanted the music. So 4 years ago, I started really putting the book together, with some feedback from different folks, and we started looking at the music. So it started a while ago, but that inspiration of that little mouse, and the theme is bigger than the book. The book is a little spark, but as I started developing it, I realized that we can all be that spark. No matter how big or how small, we can all be a spark. We can do amazing things. You don't need to save the world like Spark. It could be a kid who helps a neighbor across the street. So that became sort of the theme of this book and the music and some of the other things. We have another book we're working on for next year, same kind of format. But it's really around promoting this idea that we can all do this. And, we need to believe in ourselves. There's lessons in the book like, believe in yourself. And we incorporate those lessons into the experience and really hopefully help, motivate kids to have the confidence, to step up and make a difference. And so that's how it evolved. And I'm unlike you. I don't play an instrument and I can't sing. So, and everybody tells me, Mark, that I can't sing, so I guess they're right. But I had this music in me. And so as we went through this process, I found a music producer in Dallas, this guy, Bruce Faulkner, famous, little studio. He's done everything. And I walked in one day with my iPhone, and so I got these songs and, waving my hands. He thought I was crazy, guy off the street. Actually, I was coming back from a bike ride, so I had a neon yellow bike shirt on, and I finally got the courage because I drove past this place probably 20 times. I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go in. And then finally I was on my way home from a bike ride. I said, I'm going to do it today. So I show up and with Bruce Faulkner, this amazing guy, and he said, come back in a week. And that was 2.5 years ago. So he and I have been working, we've worked with incredible artists. If you listen to the music, high quality music, kids' music that parents would like. And he and I, I write the lyrics and the melodies, and together we produce it, and then we bring in, some extraordinary talent in the Dallas area because Bruce knows everyone. So he was my spark. So I had this music in me, and I could hear it in my head, but I had no way of getting it out. And so I connected with him, and through that collaboration, we've produced 12 songs on the soundtrack for the book, which is free. So if you buy the book, you get all the music. And now we're working on the music for book 2. We're at, I think, song number 7. So that's sort of how the music became incorporated. And so really it's, the book, read aloud, the illustrations, the music, and you played the audiobook, which is interesting because for younger kids, they may not be able to read like a 5-year-old. The book is about age 8 and above reading level, but they can listen.
Right.
And this whole idea of multisensory experiences, because not everyone, as you know, learn the same way.
Correct.
And so it could be the parent, the mom or dad, sitting with the book, playing the audiobook for the chapter as they go through. And then, the music is incorporated in the audiobook. So it was really about this multisensory, and there's obviously a lot written about how music opens up the mind and reading aloud. There's, all kinds of research, and it's really about combining those. And as I said, creating this experience for a parent with a child or a teacher with a student. And, because as you said earlier, there's so many distractions now for kids, and it's, technology driven and social media. And now we have the latest thing out there, metaverse, which is virtual reality.
Right.
Which is not good. I mean, do we need to be virtual anymore? Do we need to yeah, really.
That's right.
I worry. I worry about kids and
right.
how we're going to communicate with each other. We're in these virtual worlds.
Absolutely.
So this is an attempt. Yeah, so this is an attempt to create something, an experience that a parent and kid, and there's technology in there, the music, the parent will like, the kid will like the story, really trying to find that moment where they can share, this experience. And, as you mentioned, the book, it's 160 pages. It's a fully illustrated chapter
right.
book. And it's got music, and then we have an online resource center with 50 different activities, from learning how to draw the characters to playing harmonicas. So it's really creating, a time, and you could do it over a couple of weeks with your kid, where you and the child are totally engaged. And again, there's a little technology in there, so they can take the phone and scan the code. But It's really trying to create something different. And, we've had, some good success now that we've launched the book and working with a lot of schools. That's one thing. I didn't even realize that, Mark, until a teacher read the book and said, I want to use this in my classroom. And I said, wow, hadn't thought about that.
Well, I'm telling you now, there's without a doubt, like I said, we were live. We went back live from September till Christmas break. And then Christmas break, after that, we were supposed to come back January 4th, but because our levels are so high here, we decided to go virtual for the first couple of weeks to give it hopefully a chance for, stuff to clear out because people went visiting and traveling. And so that's the thinking behind almost like a forced quarantine. But when we get back live again, because my kids love being read to. My students love being, I have a very small school. I've had the opportunity to lead large schools, 600, 700, 800, 900 kids. And now I have the luxury and thankfulness, gratitude that I display to have a very small school. And so I literally can walk in my 3rd and 4th grade classroom and we can put them on the floor in a circle and I can read from this book or either have them come up with their phones and put it against the QR code. But, again, I love the way you keep referencing this and listening audience. I know you can't see it because this is not TV. But this is not just a run-of-the-mill book. This is an experience. And that's what the differentiator is, the fact that you're hitting, like you said, all the senses. And that is critical with children and students and even some adults today because of all the technology that we use. Teaching in today's time is a little bit different because you really do have to be and entertain. You have to, to engage a student is very challenging now because they are so accustomed to video games, social media, and all that stuff is fast moving and quick moving. And so now if you come at them with a traditional lecture or a traditional book, the child has tuned out. Mm-hmm. Now with a little spark, absolutely. I can tell you now, the child won't know what to expect next.
Mm-hmm. And as a teacher, so the way to look at it, because if you look at all the things that we've created, the music, the audio, the offline, just all kinds of activities, it's really the way I look at it. It's a platform, and there's no politics in the story. It's a platform that tries to teach good, solid lessons. Believe in yourself, treat people equally. So you, as a teacher, you get these assets, and you can configure it and figure out how you want to use it with your students accordingly. You may use the audiobook. You may use a read aloud. You may have them, to your point, come up and start scanning. It's the same way with a parent. You get the book at home. There's all these things you can do, and it's really up to the parent to sort of insert their view on top of this platform, whatever that is. And so there's all kinds of different ways people have been using the book, and I get all these, emails and videos from parents and kids, and but it's really that idea of a platform, lots of different tools, configure it for what works best with your students or your child.
And see, again, another thing, and you've mentioned it a couple of times, and I wanted to touch on that, is this whole notion of a message. And I'm big on that. Mm-hmm. As an adult, even when I'm watching a movie, I'm picking apart, okay, what's the message in here? Even if I'm like the other day, I posted on Facebook the ending of The Grinch. That cartoon, the Christmas cartoon, The Grinch. At the end, Grinch actually thought, because he had taken all the Christmas items, the trees, the toys, because he actually thought that was going to devastate the community. And as he's up on the top of the mountain, and he's talking to his dog reindeer, and he's salivating. He couldn't wait for them to be depressed. And as it turns out, as he's on the mountain, they went down there. They were singing just like they normally did when everything was there. And he could not believe it. And I said, there's a message there that even when someone does you wrong or you don't have the material, there's still something beyond that. And so when I'm looking at movies and cartoons and reading books, I'm looking for the message. And the fact that you are hitting on self-esteem issues, because that's big in schools too. Chris, you would not believe how many kids at home are told that they're nothing by their parents. So when you have a constant at home being told that you're nothing. You have a society that's pretty much telling you that you're nothing. Someone has to come back and say, yes, you are something. So if they can get that through this little mouse or this book, and it gives the teacher an opportunity for discussion, because we do a lot of work with social emotional learning, SEL. That's our buzzword now, SEL, social emotional learning. But it sounds like this book gets at some SEL.
Yeah, and SEL obviously is a broad term, but, certainly when you look at the lessons, because we have the teacher program with all the, lessons and whatnot, there's a number of core things that align with SEL, like empathy, which is probably one of the most important things. And there's a couple of things in the story where people did not have empathy, and so they missed the whole point, how people behave, because they didn't understand the individual. So we try to incorporate that. Resiliency is another big one, obviously. And, and to your point about people being told, when they fail, that people say, well, you're a failure, you're a loser.
Right.
But, you have to instill in children the idea that you get back up. And they identify with that little mouse, because it's a little mouse, and children, they identify. I want to be Spark, or there's another great character, Rosie, who, as the story goes on, becomes the main character. They want to identify with those people, and those are the attributes that they display: believe in themselves, helping people, treating people. So through the experience, hopefully the child, the kid, can connect into some of those things which, are really important. And obviously there's reading and reading comprehension, there's music, there's art, and all the other, sort of things that you want to have, as part of a program with a child. But certainly those things, self-esteem, treat everyone equally, understand the situation, which is another lesson in there that we incorporate, because people don't, we adults, we don't ask questions.
Correct.
We assume we hear something and that's it, right? And so how do you instill in children the confidence to ask a question and try to understand, the situation and not judge too quickly? And which is not easy. It's not easy for us, to really try to understand, and it's even more difficult for younger kids because they're so transactional. They pop from thing to thing, and so we spend a lot of time in the book and in the music and in the lesson plan that we've developed for schools, because we've had this fall we've had 6 schools in the Dallas area, because I worked with this teacher, and and then we had a teacher advisory group, 5 teachers, for about 8 months, trying to, build the lesson plans and do all the things that you want, the objectives, the assessment.
Correct.
Figure out how to align it with an existing curriculum. And they were fantastic, because I'm not an expert like you on the education, but I'm pretty good at bringing people who know what to do. And so we've created this in the school, and it's targeted at grade 1, grade 2 as a read aloud. So that's where we've sort of focused. And, we had 8 classes as a pilot, right? So and what happens in the classroom, they get the book. So the book is part of the lesson structure. So the book, every student gets a book, they read, they listen. There's 12 lesson plans that follow sort of the chapters in the book. There's about an hour in each lesson plan, and, we do all the things that you would expect. And then at the end of it, the kid gets the book to take home and hopefully continue that experience with their parents or
Correct.
Caregivers or whomever. And so it's really trying to bridge in the education program, at school. And I had the best 2 hours that I had in a long time, many, many years. On December 6th, I got to go to one of the schools where they had 3 classes who, were graduating. And I got to go in there and sign the books, and grade 1. The questions were wild. They basically try to convince me about the second book and the third book, and there's dragons in this, and they had and it was amazing. And because you go up and down when you're on a journey like this that I'm on right now. But that moment when I was in there, I look at the kids and they're talking about Spark, and they come up and I sign the book, and then they're presented with the book. And then we had a little badge that they all received, Be That Spark. And so I'd give them the book and say, you are a spark. Now you need to, look for ways to make a difference and recognize those sparks will help you. And so that was an amazing moment. 2 hours. So there was 3 classes, and how many kids? 25 in each class. But it just reinvigorated me and say, this is good. You got a team of kids. I'm just the quarterback, and we're starting to make a difference. So, and that was the pilot, and now we're doing some other pilots, and we'll hopefully in September be at a point where there's this program, because the program has the book, it has posters that go in the classroom, there's a whole set of things that I've gotten the feedback from teachers. Wouldn't it be great to have this in the program? And so we're incorporating that, and that part of what we do will launch in September with a fully, packaged program that meets all the standards and all the things that you need to have a program. And hopefully we're going to make that available to schools, and we're going to do it very inexpensively, and we're going to make it available to after-school programs. Really, provide kids, parents, teachers with a tool around this experience. So I'm passionate about the education component, and how do you, to your point, they get bored, really bored.
Right.
And because on the other part of their lives, they're doing, like you said, they're on games and they're interacting with all these people, and then they come to read a book. I mean, it's a
right.
big transition. And what we try to, the way I look at it, there's 2 things we try to do, what we're doing with this and some of the other things we're doing: inspire and entertain. And because you can't forget the entertain, because if you don't entertain and you don't capture them, then there's no learning going to happen. So
That's
we
correct.
try to inspire and entertain children everywhere. It's sort of what that's the mantra that we use.
Absolutely. And in terms of, I'm excited for you. And I heard you talk to your story about going into the classroom. When my show, most of my guests are telephone interviews, but particularly in my early years, a lot of my guests actually would come to the studio. They were in the area, or they'd be traveling in the area, and they'd actually come into the studio. And in those years, the show was actually heard from 6 o'clock to 7:30 a.m. on a Friday morning. So I would come to the studio, do the show, and then I would leave. And at that point, I was teaching. I wasn't a principal. I was the teacher. I would leave the studio, go to my school, and teach. And so a lot of times I would ask my guests, what are you doing after the show? And they're like, no, nothing. I'm going to grab breakfast. I said, I tell you what, do me a favor. Come with me to my school and meet my students, and we'll take the book and everything with you. And Chris, that experience that you just described is the kids would be blown away that the person who wrote the book was standing before them. And if we had copies of the book, and especially for example, your book, where on the back flap there's a picture of you. If I would open up that back flap and the kids would see the picture of you and you standing right in front of them, they would lose their minds. Mm-hmm. It was like, that's it. So it was, on the one hand, we think kids are not interested in books and reading, but on the other hand, whenever I would bring an author into the classroom, it was like they were a celebrity. And exactly what you said, if they had an opportunity to have read the book, or either if we told them about the book, they would offer up ideas and suggestions, just like you were saying about the dragon or whatever. Oh, yeah. And I had 8th graders.
Yeah, all of them.
So, listening audience, if you've just joined us, my guest this morning is Chris Parsons. And Chris was actually in the corporate world, and he transitioned to being a children's author. And the book, as we were saying, is not just your run-of-the-mill read word books. Now, trust me when I tell you, we got to have that. But this is a wonderful foray into, as he just said, inspiring and entertaining. And once you get the child to do that, they will be doing the exact thing that they claim they don't like doing. I don't like to read. Oh, you just read a whole book, 160 pages. Well, I don't like and so it's interactive. As a matter of fact, I don't know, whenever I played the piece of the audiobook, were you able to hear that at all?
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay. Because, see, like I said, I'm still learning this board. I can't tell when one button is on, whether you're hearing it or not. But if you heard it, great, because I'm getting ready to play, looks like Be the Spark or Either All Together. I'm going to play some of the music now. I played a piece of excerpt of audio. Yeah. So I'm going to play some of the music now.
laughing and having a good time. The cats have gone crazy. They're out of their minds. Well, we're all together in this wonderful place. Well, we are all together, all together, all together. So roll. Dreams can happen, just believe and they will come true. The mouse took the ball, I tell you, so can you. There goes our hero, he's a banging that drum, he saved the dragon. Where did he come from? He's surely the one. You gotta stand with your brother. You need to back him up. If it wasn't for Rodney, the owl would have given up. The skates have been defeated. The water under the bridge. We own those mountains. We've conquered yonder ridge. Everybody listen, 'cause the stories will be told. How our dragon saved us from the snow and bitter cold. Sometimes it's just better, so much better, when we are all one. Now Rosie's the mayor. How far have we come? Everybody's laughing and having a good time. The cats have gone.
Now that's just one of the songs on there, because there's multiple songs. So this is not just. I mean, this is quite a production. It's not
Oh,
just
yeah.
a book. It's a an experience. It's a production. Because I'm looking at the song sheet here. We have Veen's song, I Can Do More, A Little Spark, My Little One, Icing, Moving On, I'm Back, All Together, Zuroam, Drifter, Be My Friend, and New Day. So there's a, like you said, there's a playlist, a whole song
Yeah.
playlist that comes with the book.
Yeah, you just download it. Well, it's incorporated the QR codes, and then you go to the website. So our website is bethatspark.com, and anybody can go there. And right on the homepage, you can download the audiobook, and you can download all the music. So if you're interested in the book and you're not sure you want to buy it, at least go in and get the music and the audiobook for free. And so that's part of this. So when you get the book, it includes all the music. There's 11 songs, so it's a soundtrack for the book, and then the audio, which incorporates the music and all the sound effects. As you can tell, there's a wide range of music. We even have a heavy metal song in there
All right.
called "Icing," because of course in the story, again, when you want to entertain kids, you got to have the bad guy,
Correct.
bad gal, right? You got to have and so in that part of the book, it fits. Heavy metal fits. Because it's loud and it's angry, and and it's funny because I always ask, because I'm always, well, what song did you like? What character did you like? And it's funny, on the heavy metal, I've had probably 3 or 4 responses from girls, like 6, 7 years old, that they like the heavy metal. And I laugh and say, really? That's the song you like? Oh, yeah, that's a cool song. And, so, okay, I didn't realize that. You figured a little boy would be, all fired up. But I learned, obviously I didn't know that. Now as we're writing the music for the next, book and soundtrack, so we're incorporating some of the learnings. But, and then this guy, Bruce Faulkner, who's the guy, he's literally a mile away from me, the guy I've been working with, he's a legend. And Dragon Ball Z used to be this big cartoon. He did all the music for that TV. And, like Dragon Ball Z was just, the animated biggest cartoon ever. There was 290 episodes of that.
Right.
He did all the music, which is big music. And so he's amazing. And then he knows all those performers, because in that song we had this rock and roll guy from Dallas sang that song, the heavy metal one. Then we channel Louis Armstrong in the song
Right.
we just listened to. Because I sat down, I want this to feel like New Orleans jazz. I want the horns. I want this voice. I want, something like Louis Armstrong. And so that's how because that fits. That song is at the end of the book, and it's a getting together, and everybody's happy and dancing, and so that's how we did that. And these songs take a couple of months, to produce.
Right.
Getting the music down, because I come in with the lyrics and the melody, then Bruce creates, and it's some of the stuff like you do in the studio with your music. So he produces the different sounds, and then we bring all the musicians in, and now the musicians, because they've been involved in it, they're all into this idea of Be That Spark and helping us drive this movement, around that concept. And there's another guy who sings 2 or 3 songs, W.T. Greer. I don't know if you know that name. He's based in Atlanta. Just absolutely amazing talent. And there's a song on that sound. Well, he did 3, but I Can Do More, which is really Spark the mouse. He's lamenting because he's put in this spot. He's a mouse. You can't do anything. To your point earlier, you're told you're no good. And it's him lamenting about I can do more. If only I was given a chance. And W.T. Greer is just absolutely incredible. And so I've got to know all these people, which is another great thing. It's fascinating.
That's right.
And the guitar player we have now who does the guitar on the songs, this guy Andy Timmons. I didn't know. If you Google Andy Timmons, he's considered in the top 10 guitar players in the world. Happens to live in Dallas, happens to know Bruce. So now we've been able to really focus on quality production, quality music, original songs. And we have a kids choir on one of the songs. We're doing actually I'm recording one right now with a bunch of kids in the studio. They love that. So it's really, trying to get a mix of music that the kids are like, but the parents, because if you're a parent and you're doing this book with your kid over a week, or a chapter and an audio book, it's good if you like the story in the book as well.
Correct.
Because versus some of those mindless things on YouTube and all that makes no sense to an adult, so adults don't engage. But what we tried to create music and a story that a parent could read on their own and enjoy it.
Well, see, now I'm going to put a pin right there, because there's a couple of times you've mentioned the home and parents, and I want to jump in there because that's something I wanted to comment on. It is, and then again, this is why this is powerful for me. It is so important, and I constantly, when I'm meeting with parents, help them understand that this education thing is a team effort between home and school. And I always chat with my students and parents and say, now look, this is not school against home, home against school. The two of us are working together for your best interests. So to your point that you're looking to not only have the child as an audience, you also are looking to have the parent as an audience. That is critical, because a lot of times what will happen is we'll work on an assignment in school and have the child now say, all right, I need you to do this with your parent when you get home. That parent when you get home piece does not occur. If we want them to interview a parent, or if they're doing career and college readiness or something like that, and they have to fill out a survey or a questionnaire or some type of project, the school piece will get done. But now when you come back the next day, well, did you do it with your parent?
Yeah.
No. Or we'll call the parent or meet with the parent, and the parent say, he never told me nothing about it. So it's like the fact that you're connecting home and school, that's powerful as well. The other piece that I wanted to jump in on was this whole notion of making a difference. And making a difference, because a lot of work that we do too, and I'm constantly challenging my teachers on, because it's in some instances we're our own worst enemy. This thing called intrinsic value versus extrinsic value. And we're conditioning, unfortunately, our children to believe that the only time you have to do something is if you get something back. Like, okay, if you do this, I'll give you a pizza party. If you do this, I'll give you an ice cream party. If you do this, no, some of this stuff you need to do because it just needs to be done, and you should not have to be expecting to receive a reward. So the fact that you're addressing this whole notion of making a difference in somebody else's life or making a difference in the world or doing it, because as you know, Chris, we are faced with so much negativity. I mean, it's like the country right now feels like it's unraveling, like it's coming apart. Everybody's fussing and fighting against each other. Everybody's either this label or that label, and they're against this and they're against that. So the fact that you're now coming at them with a book that is encouraging just the opposite, and at such a young age, because somebody said to me the other day, you have to bend a tree when it's young.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one.
And that's what sounds like the message throughout this book is exactly what it's doing. That is bending the tree while it's a sapling, while it's young.
Yeah, and that's really important. I mean, if you look at all the content out there right now, and there's lots of content, there's lots of good stuff, but it's not really getting through. And that's why this multisensory, all this music, and audio and whatnot. And if you can get through and you can engage the kids, then you can have an impact.
Correct.
On them. The problem is getting to them.
Correct.
And getting to the parents. Because I found that out when I was talking to a principal on the schools, and I said, we're going to do this at home. He said, you wouldn't believe how often, the parents say, okay, you've got my kid, you train him, you've got that part.
Correct.
Right. And
they're right.
Kids don't, we're paying you, or you're getting paid, I'm going to do my own thing. And I was shocked that, he said a lot of parents just don't. And so we spent a lot of time trying to come up with a way and what we send home. So the book comes home, the music goes home, and we've got some suggested things they can do together at home. And then when they come back to school, they have to report out on, an aspect of how they were a spark. Tell the
Correct.
class on the holiday how you were a spark. And because one of the things that we really focus is not just about the child's self-confidence, self-esteem, but the child recognizing the sparks around them.
Correct.
These people and saying thank you.
Correct.
Realizing that we all need those sparks, just like I needed Bruce on the music. I wouldn't be here right now if I hadn't met Bruce, and he opened up something new for me. And there's all those people around you, and we just need to make sure kids understand that they're not in it by themselves. There's lots of people who step up and make a difference.
Absolutely right. Now we're down to the last few minutes. I want to talk a little bit about the actual name of your media company, but also I'm going to put in a plug-in for myself because I'm trying to break into the voiceover industry. So if you ever need anybody for voiceover, that's my next foray. I'm trying to break into voiceover. So if you ever need somebody, you want somebody, let me know.
Absolutely.
But
I tell you one thing. One thing I want to open up to you about your class. Once we get through the winter and COVID, I'd be only too pleased to come visit you in your school.
Oh, by all means. And I would be only too pleased to have you. And you know what? This is the thing. Now, one thing, as much as I've hated this pandemic, but the one thing it has brought us, technologically speaking, is even if you couldn't travel from Dallas to New Jersey, at this point, I can put you on Zoom or Google Classroom or something like that, and we can do it that way.
Okay,
but if you're in the New York, New Jersey area, by all means. And the thing is, my school is an all-boys school. It's a leadership school. Yeah. It's an all-boys school. It would, like I said, that's why I know for a fact I'm going to be when we go back live. I will be going into right now my 3rd and 4th grade classes combined because we haven't been able to find a 3rd grade teacher. But in any event, my 3rd and 4th grade classes combined. So I know I will be in that class sometimes the next week, coming in, reading, and having them play with the technological piece with the QR codes and all that kind of stuff. They are going to be fascinated. And with the story, and you never know, I may actually want, because I'm really sitting here thinking about it, is ordering a number of copies to actually be able to do.
Well, why don't I give you the copies? So because we did the pilots, right? We did 6 schools. So why don't we? Because I'm going to do a second set of pilots. So we'll figure out a way that you can be a pilot, because I look for feedback. That's what I'm into right now.
Okay, well, we will definitely stay in touch then.
Books.
And like I said, my school, and when I say extremely small, I don't even tell my colleagues my numbers. I did the other day, but I don't even tell. But because I've had such rough schools over my time in tenure, at this point, I feel like I almost deserve having this small of a school because they look at me cross-eyed when I tell them my numbers. but so you're talking a relatively low number of copies. But if you want us to be a pilot, I would be more than willing to be a test school for you.
You're in. Totally in. Because, again, it's the feedback. Because, again, I'm not an expert on education. And so I've been dependent on the feedback from teachers, and I work with a bunch of teachers. So it's done.
That will definitely, because I don't know how much of the feedback. I mean, one is going to give you, if you're in Dallas, I'm way up here in New Jersey, but I'm also in an urban area. So you'll have an opportunity to get, and I don't know if you've gotten feedback from an urban area or not, but in an urban school, it'll give you an opportunity to get some feedback as well. But those principals, what they shared with you, they were not exaggerating. Sadly, too many parents
I was shocked.
Abdicate their responsibility at the delivery room. And I'm not, I mean, they literally, once they've delivered, expect everybody else to raise them, whether it be the daycare center, whether it be the school, whether it be the church, whether it be anybody but them. And it's a sad commentary. And that's why, in terms of whenever you're now trying to forge a connection between what goes on in school and what goes on in the home, that is an excellent, because I'm telling you, it is so needed that, because in all too many situations, and that's why I keep trying to constantly encourage my parents and students, look, I need you to think in terms of this is we. This is not us against you, because a lot of times the children will pit the home against the school, and parents will come in, child has gone home and told them some crazy story, and the parent don't even come in and ask that it happen. They just come in yelling, kicking, hollering, and screaming, or either with their lawyers or whatever. It's like, wait a minute, that's not how it happened. So the child is they're very adept at manipulating the home against the school. So since I know that, I cut them off at the pass, and I'll call the parents in and let them know, nope, this is going to be a team effort. So the fact that you now have assignments in here that kind of, and like you said, the parents are going to be interested in this too, because, a lot of our parents are young, they're techie, they like little, technological things like this too. So the fact that you would send home something that has QR codes and interactive, they would latch onto that as well. So this is where I was going with the question. I see your media company is Zuroam. How do you say that? Zuroam. Zuroam Media. Now, what's the meaning behind that name? Talk to me a little bit about Zuroam Media.
Yeah, I invented that word. So in the book, at a high level, there's two worlds. There's the world, where Spark lives, and they have a big issue, the fire goes out, and they need to find help. And there's another world, animal world. And through the book, they basically take the best of both worlds, because the first world, people weren't treated equally. There was a hierarchy going on. And in the other world, they were all equal. So they take the best of both worlds and they combine into a new community, and the community is called Zuroam. That's the name of the new place.
Zuroam.
It's Zuroam, and there's a whole story of how the name works and all that. But it's really about this place where people are treated fairly, people are treated equally, people are encouraged. So it's sort of it comes from the book, but it was this idea that we can find those places where we matter, where we are engaged. And that's the idea of Zuroam. And it could be in your life, like your life or my life. What is that happy place when you're engaged with? Right. It could be church-related, it could be business-related, where you feel a part of it. And that's in the book. That's where that name came from. And you can Google it. If you Google Zuroam, it's our word, so you'll see lots about what we're doing. It's a good keyword, actually, because no one else knows what it is.
That's right. It's Z-U. It's just like it sounds. Z-U-R-O-A-M.
R-O-A-M. Zuroam.
And so my Zuroam is right here at this studio on Saturday mornings. That is truly my Zuroam.
Well, that's exactly it. That's the point. And again, I'll just say to people, BeThatSpark.com. Go there. And again, you can download it right on the top page. It takes a few minutes because there's a full soundtrack, full audiobook. So you can download it on your computer and listen to it. And because it is, it's quality music and it's
right.
fun. But we're just trying to get it out there to everyone.
Exactly.
you know.
Because I'm sitting here, I'm on your webpage now, and I'm looking at the Zuroam Media, the team, and I see Bruce. I see Bruce on there. I see all your folks here. Will, Mike, Sergio, Bruce, Brandon, W.T. Greer, Remington, Andy, Frank, Nicole, Sabrina, and Mary Lee. At this point, what I do is, because we're down to the end of our time, you have the opportunity to shout out and I just shouted out your team members, but anybody you'd like to shout out, anything you'd like to share that we didn't talk about, the listening audience, how they can get in touch with you, websites. The only thing you cannot share is a dollar amount or a price, but anything short of dollar and price, I'm going to turn the mic off and you get a chance to promote.
Yeah, like I said, I do want to recognize a few people. I want to recognize my family. Because, that 3 or 4 years ago, going from technology to what I'm doing right now is I was nervous.
Right.
What am I going to do? How's this going to work? But they encouraged me. They've seen me over the years and knew that this was so my family, and in fact, my family's been involved. There's a song on there my wife sang on the soundtrack, and she's unlike me, she can sing. And so they've been involved. My daughter's been involved in some of the social media and whatnot. So it's been really a family experience, and they've really inspired me. But again, the idea of the book comes with the sound, the audio, all the music, and then on that website that you're looking at, you'll see on the right-hand side the resource library. So, and that's all free. Go to the resource library. There's word search. There's directed draw. There's videos, movement videos, because that was the other thing that we talk about multisensory. We created these minute and a half videos which get the kids up from their seat and they dance, and so that's all in there. So I just encourage people just to go through, whether you buy the book, and it's all on Amazon, and it's on that site. You can go in there and do that. And we're trying to create some products around the idea of Be That Spark, but through the website you can find, and you can see all the different reviews and what people are saying about what we're doing, but enjoying the movement. Right? Be That Spark, like you are now part of my Be That Spark movement.
There you go, and I'm glad to be a part of it too, because I love. First off, that's me, because I really do believe we're put here for a purpose in terms of not only making lives better for ourselves, but making lives better for others. As a matter of fact, the best way to make life better for yourself is to make life better for somebody else. So the fact that that's what your message is about, being the spark, and the fact that, again, like I said, you get in the tree while it's young. With kids, because that's where the other day, and I'll quickly share this story. Yesterday, as a matter of fact, because we're online, we're on Google, when the kids are in class, but they still need to ask permission, if they want to leave the camera to go to the bathroom. So one of the students says, "Miss such and such, may I go to the bathroom?" So I immediately went on the chat and said, you did that correctly. May is permission, can is ability. And I went on and said, manners will take you a long way. And, I'm a wordsmith. So the fact that I heard that child say, may I, instead of, can I go to the bathroom? Because usually that's what, can I go? Like, no. It's may I. So I'm saying all that is in terms of making a difference. That's what, and the younger you can get them, because the truth of the matter is, like we were saying, a lot of, this is the deal, Chris. A lot of the things probably, whenever you and I were kids that were taught in the home is not being taught there now, back to the school having to do it. So things like manners, please, thank you, may I, all that kind of stuff. That was taught in my home. My mom and dad taught me that. A lot of our children, their mom and dads are not teaching them that. And so you really can't do or say what you don't know or never has been taught. So we wind up taking that onus on. So we're the ones now saying, no, use your manners. Thank you, please, may I, so forth and so on. So the fact that we have now a tool with a little spark and your Be a Spark movement, I am thrilled with that. And we will definitely be in touch, because I will be using this tool to further educate and to encourage folks to be a spark. I mean, for lack of a better term, to be a spark, to be positive. There's too much negativity. For sure.
Too much. It's hard. It's hard to find anything positive, actually.
There really is.
You got to look for it.
You really do, because I've gotten to the point now I don't even watch the news. I used to watch the news daily, and I've gotten to the point now where I say, you know what, I keep up with it on social media, the big stuff, but far as everyday murders and rapes and crimes and robberies and all that kind of stuff, I'm like, you know what, enough. But I so appreciate you joining me this morning. Like I said, we will definitely be in touch because I know there's some work we can do together in terms of the Be a Spark and our kids. So I do record them.
You're in.
What I'm going to do is I will send you, I archive the episodes on my YouTube channel. I will send you a copy of the MP3 link as well as the YouTube channel link. Once you receive them, they are yours. You can use them however you'd like.
Okay, that's great. I look forward to it.
All
And
right.
on social media, again, the last thing on social media, Be That Spark is our handle on Facebook and Instagram. So we do a lot of work, and there's a lot of really good content there, which, again, a lot of the posts around encouraging, positive news. So everything is Be That Spark. You'll find us.
All right. Be That
No, there you
Spark. Be That Spark. BETHATSPARK. Correct?
That's all. That's all you need. Be That Spark. You
Be
can
That
Google it,
Spark.
you can- and we have that domain, obviously BeThatSpark.com. We've trademarked the idea of Be That Spark, so we've done all that. And so, and we're looking for people to engage and help drive this.
All right. Well, again, I'm excited for you. I'm excited about the movement because Lord knows we need some positivity. And the fact that you're, like I said, getting the tree when it's young, that's a beautiful thing. You're also encouraging parents. You have the technology. Again, listening, I know you can't see it because it's not television, but this is not just a book. Like he said, it's a production. It's an experience. And the fact that you're doing multimedia, multisensory, trust me, Chris, when I tell you, it's going to take off.
That's
All right.
good. I hope.
All right. Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you again. We will be in touch. All right. Take care now.